All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you are listening to this video. My name is Elias, and with this video, I'm just going to let you know how to write a research paper or article. In fact, I have gotten a lot of requests to make this video, but because of time, I have not been able to do this video. But today, I want to just look at writing research paper or article. In my subsequent videos, I will go into detail each of the sections, each of them. But then I'm using this video to just give an overview of a research or how to write a research paper or article. In writing research paper or a research article, there are some sections that you have to adhere to. But these sections must be written very well before your paper can be published in a high quality or a very good journal. The first thing to look at is the title. You need to get your title right. The title. So, okay, I just want to get some things. Um, okay, so the title. The title. Now, how are you going to get a title? Usually, the title should cover the variables, okay, your research variables, the research variables, and the context, okay, the context. Let me use one of my papers. In fact, I'll use the first paper in Journal of Cleaner Production. So in this paper, I looked at how management knowledge influences sustainability reporting. Okay, so it means that one of my variables was management knowledge. Management knowledge. Management knowledge. Okay. Then another variable was sustainability reporting. Sustainability reporting. It was another variable. Then I had perceived benefit because I was looking at that if management has knowledge about the benefit in sustainability reporting, they will disclose it. So one of my variables was perceived benefit. Perceived benefit. And the last variable was stakeholder pressure. That is the extent to which management will disclose their sustainability information depends on stakeholder pressure. So I had four variables. I had four variables. So what I did was that I tried to cover all or include all these four variables in the title. The study was conducted to include SMEs or small and medium enterprise. So that was the context. So the topic was management knowledge and SMEs sustainability reporting. The role of perceived benefit and stakeholder pressure. That was the title. Have you seen it? So the title should include your variables, the context. Okay, so having gotten the title, that is the first thing that you need to get in writing a paper. So having gotten the title by including the variables and the context, the next section of a research paper is, is the abstract, the abstract, the abstract. Of course, you need to finish all the other sections before you can write the abstract because the abstract is the summary of your work. But you shouldn't forget that in some journals, the abstract or the word count of the abstract, the limit is 200 words. Some are 250 or some are 150. It depends on the journal. So you are going to summarize everything in about 150 or 200 words. So how do you write the abstract? As I said, you can only write the abstract after completing everything, the paper. In writing the abstract, there are some sections to cover. One of the sections is the purpose of the study. You need to cover the purpose. And even let me even start from here. Let's say it has about 200 word counts. Before the purpose, you can bring the importance of the study or the significance of the study. Significance of the study. And even the gap. The gap. So let me do like this. I want to make it systematic, okay? So importance, the gap, research gap. Then you come to the purpose of the study, the purpose. Then the methodology of the study. Then your findings, your findings. Then you come to the implications of the findings. And of course, you can add the novelty of the study. So these are the various issues included in the app. As I told you, it depends on the word count. If you're able to cover all these as part of the 200 or 150 words, bravo, bravo. But because of the word limit, if you include all these, you may exceed the word limit. If that is the case, then you need to cover the purpose, methodology, findings, and implications. Okay? Because of the word limit, we include only 4. But if you are able to cover all these issues, then that is perfect. These are the elements of a very good abstract. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Don't worry. As I said, this video is just to introduce you to the various issues to cover. So I'll just do a video on how to do all these things. Okay, so after including the importance, the gap, the purpose, the methodology, findings, implications, and novelty, that makes the abstract, the second section that you need to include in your research paper. The third section, or another section after the abstract, that we need to see is the introduction. Okay, so let me try to go to the next page. Okay, so after the abstract, you need to write your introduction. You need to write your introduction. So let me say 3. You need to cover the introduction. The introduction is the premier section. It's a very important section in your research paper. How do you write the introduction? How do you write the introduction? In writing the introduction, there are some issues to cover. Because as reviewers, when we don't see these issues, it means the paper cannot be accepted, or we need to tell the authors to make a revision. So when we are reviewing papers or when you are writing a research paper, make sure you include these things as part of your introduction in a systematic manner or systematically. So first, you need to give a background of the study, background of your study. As I said, don't worry, I will take these issues one after the other. Okay, this video just for you to know how to write a research. So you have to include the background of the study as part of the introduction. And when I take these issues one after the other, you know what is background, what is this, what is that. So after the background, we need to see the research problem or the problem statement. Because we always do research to solve a problem. So if you don't see the research problem, then you're not doing any research. So we need to see this research problem as part of the introduction. After the research problem, we need to see the research gap. The gap. What has or have not been done. And usually the gap will arise from some review. Don't worry, I don't want to rush. We will look at how to get the gap, how to argue and elucidate the research gaps. Okay, so you include the research gap as part of the introduction. Then after the research gap, how are you going to solve the gap? It's your objectives. The objectives of the study should be part of the introduction. Because if you achieve the objective, the gap will be filled. Then after the objectives, when we achieve the objectives, it will give us some importance. So the significance of the study, significance of the study, significance of the study. Then after the significance, that is the importance of achieving the objectives, you now bring, so let me say significance or contribution or contribution. Then the last section or the last part of the introduction is the structure of the remaining chapters, or sorry, sections, the structure of the remaining sections. So these are the issues to cover as part of the introduction. Okay, so you will take a full topic and I will deal with all these issues. After writing your introduction, another important section is your literature review or your hypothesis development. So let me call it theoretical review, theoretical framework rather, theoretical framework and hypothesis development, and hypothesis development. So here, you are going to look at the theories underpinning the study. Okay, so we look at how to get the theory. So what theory are you using to establish the relationship of the variables that you are studying? And then with the hypothesis development, we learn how to develop hypothesis. Okay, you give a definition. So we'll go into detail. Okay, so you go to literature, then you argue how the relationship that you are studying have already been established in literature. Then upon that, based on the theory and the empirical reviews, you can formulate the hypothesis. So you look at how to formulate the hypothesis. Don't worry at all. Okay. So what you need to know now is that another section in your research paper is your literature review or the theoretical framework and hypothesis development. After you have developed your hypothesis, the next section is your methodology. Methodology. So how are you going to achieve the research objectives? So under the methodology, you need to tell us the population and your sample. Okay? So you have to tell us that, okay, I am studying this group, that's my population. And let's say if the population is large, about let's say 1 million, more than one, you cannot study more than 1 million respondents. So you need to select, that is the sample. And even that, you have to tell us how you selected, you have to justify how you selected the sample size. So you have to go to literature, you need to back the sample size, or you have to justify. You cannot just tell us that the population is 1 million and I selected 200. No, we will not agree. How or why did you select 200? You used, let's say, a certain approach. And according to this approach, if the population is 1 million, the sample size is so much. So you can even do some calculation to show that, yes, it's true that if your population is 1 million, the sample size is so much, so I selected so much. Okay? So you have to tell us the population and the sample and how you arrive at the sample. You have to justify, very, very important. Another section under the methodology is your data collection instrument. The data collection instrument. How did you collect the data? Did you use questionnaire? Did you use interview? Did you do content analysis? We will do all these things, okay? So let's say we use questionnaire. For now, I will start with questionnaire. So we use questionnaire to collect the data. That is not enough. You have to go ahead and tell us how you developed the questionnaire or how the questionnaire was developed. So let's say the questionnaire was developed on a 5-point or 7-point Likert scale. And even where the measurement items, where the questions were adapted, you have to justify. Ultimately, can say questionnaire was used and that's all. No, you cannot say that. You have to tell, okay, questionnaire was used, that's fine, bravo. It was developed on a 5-point or 7-point Likert scale. That's very good. The measurement items were adapted from then. You mentioned where you adapted those measurement items. Okay, so that is a data collection. So don't forget to tell us how the data was collected. Don't forget to tell us how it was developed. Don't forget to tell us where the measurement items were adapted. That makes the data collection instrument, okay? So after the data collection instrument, you should even tell us how many responses did you get, okay? How many? Let's say when you administer the questionnaire because if the sample size was, let's say 200, after administering the questionnaire, let's say only 150 responded. So the response rate is you divide 150 by 100 and multiply, 150 by 200 and multiply by 100. That's what the response rate. Okay, so you tell us whether all the sample size was realized or some of them was realized. Okay, good. After you have collected the data, you are now coming to run the analysis. But before running the analysis, since this is primary data, you have to conduct series of preliminary analysis. Okay, so here you are going to conduct preliminary analysis. Okay, so the preliminary analysis is used to assess the reliability and validity of the data. So here, please make sure you get SPSS. If you don't have SPSS, kindly install SPSS. And I'll also be dealing with AMOS software, same structural equation modeling. So please kindly download the AMOS, either version 23 or the newest version. And when you get to the analysis, I'll be using them. Okay, I'll be using them. Okay, so after you have collected the data must be analyzed. It must be tested for reliability and validity. We need to know that the data that you collected, it is valid and reliable. We can rely on it. So there are some analysis that must be conducted to ensure the reliability and validity of the data. And some of them are, one, you can conduct common method bias. I will not go into detail. I will take these sessions one after the other. Let's say the introduction, I will do a video on that, only that. Hypothesis, only that. Methodology, I will do so different videos, okay? So you can run CMB as part of the preliminary analysis to validate the data, You can conduct social desirable responding, SDR. You can conduct exploratory factor analysis, EFA. You can conduct confirmatory factor analysis using EMOS or similar software. You can conduct your average variance extracted, composite reliability test, and Cronbach alpha. These are all used to assess the reliability and validity. You can even conduct your discriminant validity using the funnel and Lacquer approach and all that. There are so many approaches. Okay. So what I want to let you know is that in conducting reliability and validity for good journals, make sure you conduct all these analysis. Okay. Your CMB, your SDR, your EFA, your CFA, AVEs, CR, that is composite reliability, your Cronbach alpha, CA, your discriminant validity. We have a way of doing that. So don't worry, we will look at them. So please get your SPSS installed. I will take you through each of them. Now, after conducting these analysis, okay, there are some thresholds that must be met. Okay, there are some thresholds. So when we conduct this analysis and the thresholds are met, we can conclude that the data was valid and reliable. And since the data was valid and reliable, how did we know? By comparing our results to the thresholds are there. They have already been established. So after confirming that the data was valid and reliable, we can now run the result. That is the next section of a research paper. You are going to present the results or the findings. And the results or the findings depends on the research objectives, okay? How you are going to run the results. So as I said, please get your SPSS installed. Because if it is a regression, I will look at both SPSS, the normal OLS, ordinary least square, using the process macro and the normal SPSS. And I'll even go further to structural equation modeling, okay, path analysis. So get both SPSS and They must installed. So when we get here, we are going to run analysis. Okay. So the analysis that you are going to run depends on the research objectives. Very, very important. You cannot just run any analysis. For instance, if the objective is to establish the relationship between two variables, the relationship, then you are going to run correlation analysis. Correlation. So if your objective is to establish the relationship between two variables, then it means that you are going to run correlation analysis, and we use SPSS to do that. If your objective is to look at the extent of a certain practice or practices, the extent, then you can run your normal mean score, that is descriptive. Okay, you run descriptive. If your objective is to look at the effect, not the relationship, please, not the relationship, but rather the effect. When we get to the analysis, I will explain the difference between relationship and effect. It's very, very important in research. So if your objective is to look at the effect of one variable on the other, or two or three variables, then you are going to run regression. So regression deals with effect, okay? Regression. And with this regression, we can use OLS, ordinary least square, or PLS, partial least square, using SEM. Okay, when we get that, I will give you the difference between the two, and I'll run both for you to see. I'll run both for you to see. So the results or the analysis depends on your objectives. So based on the objectives, we can run correlation, we can run descriptive, we can run regression to achieve the objective of the study. So after we have run the results, so now we know the findings, we know that we have run, okay, whether regression or we have run, so we know the results. The next thing is that we need to discuss. We need to discuss the results. So the next section is discussion. We have to discuss for our readers to know the meaning of the results, okay? So in discussion, primarily, you are going to compare the findings of the study with that of past studies. That is the primary thing. The main thing you are going to compare. So whether the results deviate from past findings or it is in agreement, the results are in agreement with past findings. If they are in agreement, why? If they deviate, why? That is the discussion. So the discussion brings out the contribution of your study. It brings out the novelty of the study. Let's say the results deviate from past studies. You need to give us the reason or the rationale behind that result, and that is the contribution of your study. Okay? So under the discussion section, the main thing is that you are going to compare the results of your study with that of past studies and explain the rationale behind the agreement or disagreement, which will bring out the contribution and novelty of your study. Okay? So after you have discussed, you are now going to conclude. You are almost done. Conclusion. You are going to conclude. Conclusion. So under the conclusion section, there are some issues to cover. Under the conclusion, you have to tell us you have to summarize the key findings of the study. You have to summarize. So sometimes you can start with the objectives. This was the objective of the study, and these are the findings. Okay? And based on the findings, you bring out the implications, what the results mean, or the meaning of the findings. Okay, the implications. And the implications can be theoretical implication. Theoretical implication. It can be practical or managerial for managers. So the implication about recommendation, okay? You can also call it recommendation. And then based on the findings, we can make some recommendation to policymakers. So we have policy implications. Okay, policy implications. So based on the findings, we can bring out some recommendations to some the policymakers, government. Okay, we can bring out recommendations for managers or businesses. And we can bring out recommendations for the theory, okay? That's the theoretical contribution. So what the findings mean, okay, in contributing to the theory, what is already known, that is the theoretical implication. So that is how to write the conclusion. Make sure that in writing the conclusion, you can summarize the objectives, the key findings, and the implications. Okay? And the last thing is that you can add the limitations and future research suggestions. The limitations and future research suggestions as part of the conclusion, or you can include it as a standalone section. Okay, so you have to bring out what are the limitations of your study. Let's say you use questionnaire, a structured questionnaire which restricted respondents' ability to express themselves. As such, so that was the limitation. So as such, future studies should include interviews, okay, so that it will capture the perceptions of the respondent. So the limitations can be formulated based on the methodology you applied. Okay, based on the context. Let's say you focused on only SMEs. So future studies should also focus on large firms or should add large firms. You focused in Ghana. That is the study focused in Ghana. So future studies should also focus on another country in Africa or even outside Africa. You perform a cross-sectional study, that is collecting data at a point in time. Future studies can conduct longitudinal study, that is to collect data over a period of time. Have you seen it? So the limitations may be formulated based on the methodology you applied. Then based on that, you have to suggest what should be done in the future or future research. The limitation can be the variables you use. You consider this variable, that variable, that variable. Future studies should include this variable and that variable. Okay, so please, that is how to write the conclusion. Then after the conclusion, it means you are done. You then bring your reference list. Your reference list. Okay, so these are the main sections of a research paper. Let me quickly summarize it here, and that ends this video. A research paper should include the title. It should include the abstract. It should include the introduction. It should include the literature review or your theoretical framework and hypothesis development. It should include the methodology by capturing your population, your sample, the data collection instrument, even how the data was measured. That is the operationalization of your data. You have to operationalize the data. Sorry, the variables, how the variables were measured and defined. Okay, so in some papers, you see the operationalization of the variables as part of the methodology. You have to conduct the preliminary analysis, your validity and reliability test, okay, to make sure that the data was valid and reliable. Then after the methodology, you have to include the results or the findings. Then you have to discussion. You have to discuss. Then you have to conclusion. You have to conclude the paper. Then after the conclusion, you can now bring your reference list. And as I told you, the limitations and future research suggestions may be added to the conclusion, or it may stand as a separate section. So this is how to write a research paper. And in our subsequent videos, I'll look at each of these, how to write them into detail. Okay, how to write them into detail. So thank you very much for your time. In our next video, I'll just show you a research paper. Okay, how to get the research, how to download papers. How are you going to get the research papers? Okay, so I'll show you how to get the papers and how to write each of these sections. Thank you very much and see you in my next video.